All right, welcome back to PhaseTwo podcast. We're broadcasting. Do we broadcast?
We're live, baby.
We're coming at you from Seoul, Korea. I don't know that we ever mentioned that enough, like where we're actually, like, just to add a little context to the show.
Seoul, baby.
But I'm Daniel Sandrin, and this is my brother Eric, or Lee Dong-jun and Lee Seung-jun. We're brothers from Seattle, and we played basketball out here in Korea for 10 years, and now we're retired. And this is our podcast, PhaseTwo. Welcome back.
And so today we have a very special treat for your listening pleasure.
Very special.
Right. Broadcasting live from Seoul to every media outlet in the world.
Right.
We have for your listening pleasure today, the famous, the talented, the sexy
The sexy.
Bobby Choy. Welcome to the pod, man.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to the pod.
That's the first time anyone's ever.
Oh, I doubt that. I doubt
Sexy.
that.
Don't be modest.
So actually, Bobby, we didn't actually know how special this was. So like, here's how we know Bobby. We got asked to do a podcast with Collab Asia, and so we met Bobby through that. So Bobby, you've just kind of been our producer here.
Yeah.
And you're the most humble guy in the whole world, the most humble guy I've ever met, probably. And then every time we're walking out, you would be like, "Oh yeah, I got my movie premiere coming out tomorrow." Like, what? Like, or you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I play South by Southwest like every year." I'm like, what? Like, oh yeah, I've been undercover for the CIA for, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
You have all these things going on, and so I kind of did a deep dive on you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like last night, just like, oh shit, Bobby. Just all I knew was the whole thing about the movie. You know, that you're premiering, which awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Because he comes in every day wearing a trench coat, glass, and a hat, and we're like, who the fuck is
Yeah,
this
he's
guy?
like witness, deep witness protection out here
So
in
like,
Korea.
can you, like, for us, because we get a tidbit of this special life like every day we're in here.
Just a tip.
Can you just tell us? Like,
Give us a brief
Yeah.
history.
yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess a brief history. I'll be short about this. Born and raised in New York.
Okay.
Korean American. I moved to Korea.
Not
about
Flushing, though.
No.
Okay, just got to put that out there.
I actually grew up in Manhattan.
Which is
you know.
is that bizarre?
It is kind of
all my
bizarre.
New Yorker Korean friends, aren't
Yeah.
they all from Queens?
Yeah, most
New
of them are
Jersey?
from Queens
Yeah.
or Brooklyn. A few in the Bronx, maybe.
The
some in
rougher
Staten Island.
Koreans.
Yeah. Not a lot of kids in Manhattan, but I moved out to Korea about 9 years ago.
But before that, you moved to LA, right?
Yeah, I lived in LA for 9 years before moving to Korea 9 years ago.
So all the major Korean American places where people think that we live, you've already hit New York, LA. Okay, cool. I guess I've done it. So
Not
now
Sao Paulo,
Now
but-
let me try Korea. So then
Yeah.
by LA you came to Korea, and can you tell us why? I mean, you have like
Sure,
this.
yeah. Like I was doing actually, I started doing full-time music in 2015. Well, I released my first album in 2015.
Okay.
And, you know, it took, not 2015, sorry, 2005.
2005.
Yeah. So it's been 15 years.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, the first 4-5 years like was tough, but finally I was, you know, doing pretty well by the 5th year. And then was finally selling out shows at venues in LA and New York. And then all of a sudden I came out to Korea for vacation, just for Christmas break.
Do you have family out here? What was the reason for that?
I have some family out here, but my brother had business out here. So
Okay.
I, you know, always broke. He's like, hey, just come out to Korea, just pay for your flight, and like he'll pay for everything else.
And that was your first time out here?
Yeah.
Older brother?
My older brother. And so I came out, was here for maybe two weeks, and I ended up staying like a month and a half or something like that, because I loved it.
What did you like about it? Because everybody, because on your podcast, Danny makes fun of you because you can't speak
Yeah.
Korean.
He also
Oh,
does
yeah.
he also
I still can.
you gotta tell me he also does a podcast.
Oh, yeah,
in his
he's
spare,
also
in his spare time.
Yeah, this guy does everything. And for me, when I first came to Korea, it was
Yeah.
like really difficult because I didn't speak Korean.
What year was that?
I was out here in 2005.
Oh shit. Okay.
We might have seen each other in the airport.
That's a long time ago.
So you
Yeah.
came in and something about this place just was like, you're like, dude, this is fucking awesome. Was it the drinking? Was it the partying? Like,
Were you
It
getting
was so
chicks?
weird. It was like everybody looked like me.
No, that
It's
is
like-
that is a thing.
Also, like the weirder thing was in New York, whenever I saw Korean people, like people older than me, my parents always like kind of taught me to bow to them, even if we didn't know them. This is a weird thing. So I found myself like bowing to people in Korea everywhere I went.
Oh my god.
Like I was just like
Whiplash
instinctively
in like Gangnam-yeok.
but I just realized like, man, I feel kind of safe for the first time in my life.
so you felt
Yeah.
like you belonged here. Like you felt like comfortable. Like
Yeah.
you were home in the sense.
I mean, in New York, I grew up in New York, and I was born in '78 and grew up in like the '80s.
78 house power,
Marty.
baby.
Marty. And it was shitty back then. In the '80s,
Oh,
like
yeah,
New York
I
was
heard.
like, even the '90s, it was just getting cleaned up.
What part of
Then-
Manhattan?
Midtown.
Midtown, okay.
And I've been not raped.
Did you say raped? No. Are we talking
No.
about a drunk thing with
I've
Danny?
been, I've been robbed. I've been mugged. I've been
Oh my God.
jumped. I've been, I've had knives pulled out on me. I've had like, I don't know, like everything.
Yeah,
and then,
same.
it's like,
Seattle's pretty rough.
See, I was
So-
just like that.
I
Right.
hated that shit as a kid. I would run everywhere, or if I
Really?
wasn't walking fast. New Yorkers all walk fast for
Right.
a reason. And I came here, and it felt like the first time I could kind of relax. Although LA was a
LA's chill.
little less, intense than New York. There, I was like afraid of cops for some reason. I was afraid of
Not for some reason,
yeah.
because you have a very well backed up.
So when you were here, like that overwhelming sense of you're like, I'm not gonna get robbed, mugged. I feel safe. Everyone looks like me. You felt comfortable, and that
Yeah.
was the main reason, or like
Initially, yeah.
Initially, that was it. And that's kind of what drew you to Korea.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I should stay here and kind of explore why I feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, in the month that I was hanging out here, I brought my guitar. And I was like, I need to go and
You were
try to
busking?
play some live music. Essentially, yeah. So
outta
I
here.
went
Hongdae?
to Hongdae and I met a bunch of musicians and I ended up playing my first show in Korea, opening for a bunch of indie bands.
Nice.
And I loved it. It was just amazing. These guys were just like, I felt like I had missed that whole grunge era in Seattle,
Oh.
but
Yeah.
but
You lived it, bro.
It felt like that was happening in Korea when I was
Okay.
visiting.
Okay.
But you're not really grunge.
No,
Like-
yeah, but that indie scene.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of like people, like bands were doing it for the love of it and not trying to, get followers and shit. Like they're just like really in it to, for the love of music. And I wanted to be a part of that. So, I kept in touch with these guys. And, a few months later, I packed up, one suitcase and my guitar and I moved to Korea.
Wait, and
Just
you,
a few months after.
your
I
brother was
visited.
here. You were just like, fuck it, I'm packing up all my shit. Like,
No,
whatever
my
I
brother
saw,
was
like-
just here for that 2-week business trip.
So you
and
just
he
came.
ended up leaving. I stayed in Korea an extra 2-3 weeks, something like that, and I stayed at a jjimjilbang.
And
Because
you
I
had
couldn't
no friends
afford
after
the
your brother.
hotel.
After your brother left, you had just no friends, just the people you met in Hongdae.
Yeah, just them and some other kyopos that I'm still friends with out here.
That's an awesome
Yeah.
story.
So that was like such a powerful impression. You came back, packed up all your shit, and just came back with
Yeah.
like basically you knew these musicians, these wandering minstrels in Hongdae,
Yeah,
and then you're like,
Troubadours.
and
that was enough.
I ended up playing more shows out here. In the time that I've been here, I've played hundreds of shows at like hundreds of venues, and it just feels like I didn't miss the wave, like I did the whole grunge period,
Right.
and like so it was cool to be a part of that. I got my first record deal out here. I got I met my wife here. Had a son. I'm a dad. Like a lot of big milestones in my life have happened in the last.
And your
9
wife
years.
is Kyopo or she's Korean?
She's straight up Korean.
Straight
She's
up.
like Gwangju Jeolledo 사람.
That's where our family's
Yeah.
from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She rules the house with the iron fist.
Yeah, what's that?
Rules the house with the iron fist.
Totally. Like I'm so afraid of her.
I think that's just every Korean woman.
Yeah.
Like they're strong. Our
So
mom
strong.
is just like the women out here are strong.
Yeah, yeah. My mom too is the same way. Like
Is
she's
she Gwangju-pa?
she's not. She was born in Pyongyang.
Oh wow.
My
Get
dad
outta
too was
here.
born in North Korea. But they, I don't know, they have like that.
So they crossed over. Well, no. How would
Yeah, no,
they crossed over before the war. Are they
In '68. Oh yeah, they moved before the war.
Okay.
They both
When they were
separately
kids
did,
then.
yeah. And they happened to both immigrate to the U.S. in '68 and met and married in New York.
They met in New York.
Yeah, yeah, because there was not a lot of Koreans then.
No,
You know,
that's
so-
a crazy thing too. Is like Seattle, there wasn't a ton of Koreans when we were growing up, and now it's like tons.
Yeah.
In New York, I'm sure back in those days it was kind of probably rare.
Yeah, I
And,
mean, a lot of Koreans were coming in the '70s, but the way my mom tells these stories in like the late '60s, everyone knew each other. Like
Oh, I
they all
bet.
like,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
and it was it was the churches that brought people together because even if they weren't Christian or
Right.
It's all
Catholic, they just-
networking.
You had to be
yeah,
part of
they
the
just
community.
went there to see other Koreans.
Yeah, so let me ask you this question: when we were growing up, like, I don't know how it was in New York. Like, I was because like when we didn't grow up in Seattle proper. We grew up kind of in the outskirts.
Okay.
And so when we went to Seattle, we're like, "Fuck, this is like New York. This is a huge fucking city, right?"
Okay.
But then like all the Asian communities, because like in Seattle, like we're close to Asia, so we have Vietnamese, Filipino, Samoan, like Chinese, Japanese, like it's all kind of there, right? And we're growing up, like it's not like we looked at, oh, you guys are Japanese, you're different than us. You know, like kind of thought that, oh, we're all Asian.
All the same.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then later on, we came to Korea and we figured out that like, oh, there's like history, there's differences, like we're not all the same. Because like when we were growing up, like, we had a group like in high school, like my brother's like group of friends was like basically every Asian nation, there was like at least one guy and we all kind of hung out together. you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Was it like that in New York or was it very
Yeah.
separated? Because the Chinese community was already pretty established, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of my friends in school were Chinese.
Or Chinese.
Yeah, I had Korean friends too, but most of my Korean friends were like church
church.
friends because we went to the Korean church.
But like you had more Asian friends or was it just kind of a mixed bag of like...
It was
like,
mixed, but of the Asian friends that I had in school I mean, in Manhattan.
Interesting.
Like high school I went to is very, very mixed. I went to LaGuardia High School. It's like that that performing arts school they made that movie Fame about.
Okay.
And so we were all kids from all over the borough, like every borough. Like we
gotcha.
would all just meet up and go to school in Lincoln Center. But of all the Asians, there was Chinese, Korean, mostly Chinese, Korean, I would say. But
But did you guys kind of stick together because you guys probably weren't the majority in the school, right?
yeah, in a sense. But I hung out with the loners. So it was a kind of a mix of people. I wasn't very.
You probably
outgoing
ruined their
or-
vibe. They're loners,
Yeah.
and then now they got you around. They're not loners anymore. So, Bobby, so I think it's interesting because the fact that you followed music this far and art and this kind of stuff. Because I know even now, like there's the whole Tiger Mom thing. Like our mom was like, you got to study, get a good job, go work in an office, right? So it's really, I think that's pretty revolutionary that your parents allowed you to follow this path. You know, I know
Yeah.
a lot of people are
Yeah.
very controlling, especially in that generation.
Sure.
So what do you think, now you have a kid, and what contributed to your, following this path? Not being study hard, be doctor, lawyer, like all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, it's a factor, many factors, I think. My parents were just more like, they weren't as strict as my other Korean friends' parents. I definitely could see how strict and Tiger Momish other families had to deal with. But my parents were pretty, lax. And both my older brothers, I have two older brothers, and one's a doctor, one's like a successful like businessman.
So they already got it out of the way, so you were off the hook? Or?
Yeah, kind of, and like I had
Now it
more
makes
tendencies to, write music and and draw and paint and
creative,
stuff like
artistic.
that. So they let me
Did they
do that.
encourage you that way, or is that just something you gravitated towards?
Yeah, I just gravitated. They didn't encourage me at all. Like we didn't talk much actually. So my dad was never around. I don't know where he was, but he was like traveling the world all the time. Most of my, I think, first grade, he kind of took off, and I see him like once a year, something like that. So
He was working in like Korea or someplace.
yeah, I mean, he was in Korea, he was in Vietnam. I heard he was in the Philippines, just doing.
Hustling.
I don't know. Yeah, just hustling.
This is
Sending
like
money,
actually
money home.
This is a really common like Korean thing. Like one of the most famous basketball coaches in Korea, his whole family lives in LA.
Oh, really?
And he's making all the money in Korea, but he wants them to have that good American like upbringing.
I think from
and
that
stuff.
generation, it wasn't so uncommon for the man to be like, look, like whatever I need to do, like I'm gonna go out there, even if I'm not at home.
Yeah.
Like I'll make sure that I provide and like send that money home so they can have a life better.
That's like a uniquely, I think,
Yeah.
Asian thing.
Yeah.
I've seen it with a lot of my other, not
Right.
necessarily Korean friends, but other Asian friends.
Right.
That's kind of a thing.
I mean, with my son now, like I don't really have a choice. I think my wife's gonna make all the decisions, but I'm okay with that. Like she's really like a bright lady, and she's like, oh man, I just called her a lady.
Wow.
She's not gonna watch this,
But she is.
she's, but yeah, I mean, she's super bright, and I totally trust her with every decision she makes with our son. But
So how was this? Because like me and my brother, you know, like obviously my brother's got 2 kids now, and like this topic comes up quite a bit, like how we were raised, right? For the education and for what was going on at that time, I don't think how we were raised was so abnormal. I think like, you know, most parents like hit their kids if they did something wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
give them a timeout, and like I don't like the way they disciplined and instructed and raised and taught, you know, quote unquote. I don't think it was so like, oh my God, you did that. I think it was more like it was pretty normal.
It was,
right?
yeah.
It's just like whatever level it was, right? But now with all this education, child psychology, and like hopefully we're smarter and more informed than, you know, our parents were. Like, do those tactics that helped raise us, how much of that are you going to use in the raising of your child?
yeah, I mean, that's tough because it's a completely different playing field, right? Because kids have the internet now. They have access to information so much quicker, and that could even be, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or something in the middle.
I think there's no good or bad. It's just, it's a thing. It's there. You can't avoid it. It's there. It's like, you know.
Yeah, and then you have to, but so our job is to figure out like what's the balance, you know, like how do we make sure they're not getting too much, you know, phone time, too much computer time, you know, go outside and play.
Do you actually think
like-
that you can really regulate that though? Well, I mean, now
Yeah,
you
I
can,
don't know.
but I mean, like once they go to school and they're going over their friend's house, do you really think you can regulate? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I know kids these days that are into video games.
Oh, yeah.
They just don't get off. They're like online all the time.
My
you know?
uncle, my Wei Samson in Seattle, he has that problem with my cousin, his daughter. And it's like, how can you regulate it? She's a college student. If she wants to play games all the time, like there's really nothing you can do,
Yeah.
right?
But then it's like also
There's-
like there's like those kids that are on the games and they're out there making millions because they're the best.
Yeah,
they're like awesome.
But that's like
Yeah.
the
Right.
0.001%.
But that's what you got to
But if you
figure
do
out
that,
if your kid is actually good at what they're doing, or if they're like the bottom of the.
But
that's
does
tough
it
'cause
matter
I think-
if it's their passion? Like think about it. If you never get to be, you know, Britney Spears famous,
Yeah.
does that mean it's not worthwhile for you to play gigs and do stuff? If it
I
makes
don't
you
know.
happy, like
It depends. Like I just have to make sure that my son has enough skills to, you know, bring home the bacon, you know, or just like to. I mean, if he wants to have kids himself, he's got to be responsible, and
Right.
and you know those skills that he has. Is it good enough to get you, you know, a decent salary for your family?
See, maybe like
Yeah.
what I've been thinking is like, so when we first came to Korea, like StarCraft was huge, right?
Yeah.
And we had never played. I didn't even know what it was, right?
Did you come in 05 too? Around then?
I was in and
07.
out. I
Okay.
came a little later. My brother came first.
Okay.
I came here permanently about 2 years later.
Okay.
he was already here for a while.
StarCraft.
actually,
So
you came in 2008, I think, to play your first season.
Right. But I was like in and out, like coming to visit.
Yeah.
And so like when we first came, StarCraft was huge, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's like playing, they're going to PC Bangs to play and all this kind of stuff. And we never even heard of it, right? But that game like united like a community, like Korean Americans in the States, wherever they were playing this game. So it's like maybe like this gaming and like being whatever it is, that Instagram or whatever, like, you know, whatever the next thing will be. Yeah. Maybe that's like the thing that connects them. Like that's like the basis or can be one of the building blocks of their community.
Sure.
So it's like if we take that away and be like, oh, you're playing too much,
right?
Then it's like, are we taking them out of?
Or, you know, there's also like the support industry. They say like with the San Francisco gold rush, it wasn't the people that struck gold that made money. It was the people that were selling axes and mining equipment, right? So maybe, you know, playing games or something, maybe you become like a game designer, you know, like a game tester, you know, or like there's that whole, the biggest like social media thing is, what's the thing where they talk to each other on the live gaming? Like it's like a YouTube type platform.
Twitch?
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's so
they
many.
make a lot of money on there.
It's such a big industry, like with advertising and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's a niche for everybody.
Yeah, as long as there's enough to go around in those games, like even you can figure out if you have managerial skills, you know, or if you have like, you have a good like hand-eye coordination, maybe that.
This is so hypothetical. We don't even know if your son's gonna like games or not.
Well, I think like what you're talking about, I think like was kind of an interesting point, and I think that's kind of what like me and my brother have kind of like thought about on and off. And I know for me personally, like it's like I've always wanted to like try to like add as many tools as I can to my quote unquote tool belt. Yeah. Just in case. So the more skilled you are, the more things that you are able to do, like speak languages, do math, like know a little bit about history, read a book, like whatever it may be, like then you can have more opportunities for like jobs or, you know, to meet people, whatever. And like you said, you want to give him enough skills to be equipped to eventually bring home the bacon, right?
Yeah, or help him find, you know, his passion and things that he's better at than other kids his age. You know, I think maybe those are the things that I would want him to focus on. And if college isn't, that's one thing I feel like I wasted a lot of time in college.
Same.
I feel like I should have just went straight to playing the open mics and getting
probably save some money, maybe.
Oh my gosh, I'm still paying off.
Are you serious?
College loans, yeah. So
the best thing about going to college for us is that we get scholarships.
Oh yeah.
So like you know like that like but I mean
as far as like gaining actual knowledge that I use or networks that I leverage for
I can make a beer bong out of
there is like absolutely nothing whether it's knowledge based. I mean we had a lot of fun experiences and playing basketball. Yeah. Playing basketball is the most useful thing that we got from college, but I could have done that, you know, playing club ball.
So here's an interesting thing. Like so it's like what about if we look back at those 4 or 5 years that we spent in college, me 6, like what skill did we learn in college that we still use today?
Is there anything you use?
Damn.
Like that?
I feel like your skills are actually more useful. Like if you wanted to be a sculptor.
I mean, I was a visual arts major, like a fine arts major.
That's actually a tangible skill. You can make stuff.
I was a painting My concentration was in oil painting. So really? I was painting every day or sculpting or doing something, you know, in the visual arts. I was taking classes on filmmaking, stuff like that.
So that helps you out.
I guess that makes Well, that's not fair. We didn't.
But Eric, you learned French. You learned French. French is useful.
French is useful, but I don't use it in my.
Not in Korea, but like it's useful in general.
Well, you know, honestly, I met a guy from Switzerland yesterday, and I spoke French with him for the first time.
From Geneva?
Yeah. No, actually from Lausanne.
Okay.
But like I haven't spoke French in probably like 10 years. So like speaking with him again, he was like, "Oh, you speak French?" And I was like,
But I bet if you were texting each other.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Business major, I did business. Okay. Absolutely worthless dog shit major. Like nothing applies. You have no job specific stuff.
Are you still friends with your college mates?
No, I have one friend. My roommate I'm still friends with. That's it. Oh, and my brother. We went to the same colleges.
Okay.
But that didn't really count. We would have been friends if we went to college or not.
No, honestly,
how about you?
I have
tight knit.
You know, I'm still friends with them on Facebook.
Go to the reunions?
Get to see them. No, I've never been to a reunion at all, high school or or college.
On purpose or just no?
I'd never received an invitation.
Seriously?
Yeah, no one's tracked me down.
Hey, send Bobby a goddamn invitation.
Jesus. Think you're better than him?
Yeah, and I went to a Christian college.
We did too.
Oh, you did? Where'd you go?
Seattle Pacific.
Oh, really?
Well,
So
we-
strict,
actually,
so strict.
We started at a Jesuit school,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Which was actually free
okay.
and chill.
Right,
Okay.
and then but we're getting theology from like the
Yeah.
Like
Catholic
actual
church, right?
priests.
and then we
Biblical
changed to a
studies.
super strict Christian school.
Did you have
Seattle
mandatory
Pacific.
chapel?
Yes. Yes.
What
we
did
had
you
to
actually go and write the reports?
No, we had to. Yeah, because
We just wrote the reports.
Oh, okay. No, we had to.
Honor system.
Yeah, we had to write.
Don't put me on the honor system.
And if you missed it, you'd have to listen to the tape.
Wait,
and
did you have to sign a contract before you went to school?
like no sex, no alcohol.
I didn't for the school I stayed at longer, but I transferred briefly to Wheaton College.
That's the school that I went.
Eric, we had a
you went to
partnership with
Wheaton?
Wheaton.
No
That's
way.
like what, Chicago?
Yeah, Chicago. I went there and I signed a contract.
You went
not
to Wheaton?
dance. Yeah.
You went to Wheaton?
You can't drink or dance. Yeah.
It's like Footloose.
Yeah.
You had to dance. We could dance, but we
Yeah.
couldn't swear. We couldn't curse.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was.
We couldn't engage in
Yeah.
immoral sex, but we could have moral sex.
Oh, really?
Like probably if you're married in college.
I just went for a semester.
Eric
That was
almost
enough
got.
for me.
Eric actually got kicked out of the Catholic school,
Mm-hmm.
and how many times did you almost get kicked out of the Christian school?
Never. Like 4 or 5 times.
Oh,
4 or
really?
5 times. I mean, he threatened to kill somebody, but
bad.
that's for another
I was
podcast.
struggling
Oh,
with
man.
my faith.
Eric,
No, seriously, it was a problem back then, man.
I have to interrupt because we're past our mark. E, can we enter into the game?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do it. Let's do
Game
it.
portion. So, E, did you want to go
man.
first? Did you have something?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I know I'm gonna do terrible
Okay.
at this. I know what part of the show this is, but it's like
I left my phone in either pocket.
So this is
Okay.
the thing. We prepared a game, okay? And I was like, I think it's gonna be fun because like the thing is like my brother when we first came to Korea, we didn't grow up speaking Korean at all.
Yeah.
Like I mean we heard it and
same
we could,
here.
you know,
Yeah.
I don't know,
So-
but like
I was-
definitely less than you.
Yeah, but you
I'm
grew up in the
guessing.
Korean community. We grew up like we're like you know,
White boys.
You know, we grew up and we didn't really speak a lot. We knew food and I knew how to answer the phone.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
Like I could say those with confidence. I could answer the phone, tell my grandmother good night, and then say kimchi.
And by answer the
Dude,
phone,
that was me too, though.
By answer the phone, we mean 여보세요, and then as soon as they start saying something else, we're like, 잠시만요. Give it to them.
I didn't even know 잠시만요.
wow.
I was pretty bad. When I first got here, it was just thank God Kakao just came out and it was like emojis.
Bro.
Like I would, that's how my wife and I first communicated through
Oh, did she not speak
emoticons.
English?
Yeah, no. She
Oh,
doesn't,
wow.
Like, we was like body language, you know.
So I think like the thing is like your first couple years you can get away with not speaking Korean. They're like, oh, he's
Yeah.
just from America. He's only been here for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And then as you get, you know, we're past 10 years.
We're lifers at this point.
Okay.
So just to get this out of the way, we all speak Korean. We all speak Korean.
Yeah.
Like compared to you, if you're living in America, we're
Yeah.
probably better than you. But we all struggle with how well, you know, it's all like a level, right?
Okay,
And so
yeah.
it's I know Danny definitely has fun with your Korean.
Yeah.
Eric, you were recently on a TV show and they were having fun with your Korean. And everyone makes fun of my Korean too, but I think here I might be the bigger language dork. So we're gonna have a language quiz here.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm already starting to sweat. It's
Okay.
like-
Yeah.
Okay. So on your first podcast, actually, I started listening to the Nunchi podcast.
Okay.
And first of all, I have a problem with your definition of Nunchi, but we'll get into that later.
Okay.
There was a word that you guys were like resting bitch face. And I think Danny speaks,
yeah.
I mean, Danny speaks the best Korean out of all of us,
Oh
right?
yeah. It's
And
really good.
Danny couldn't figure out what resting bitch face was
Right.
just on the spot.
in Korean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really racked my brain and I know what it is.
Oh, you do?
There's a phrase for it.
Okay.
You guys give me your definition. How would you say resting bitch face in Korean? And whoever's the closest, because there's an actual Korean phrase, but you don't have to just describe it.
Oh man.
Resting bitch face? How would you describe that in Korean?
Yeah, like if you were gonna like, oh, she had a resting bitch face, and,
Okay.
and people are like 뭐라고? 그게 뭐지? 그게 like if you had to explain to a Korean person what that means.
I would probably say 쌍년 얼굴.
Okay, that is a definition. Eric, what would you go?
I would probably say 그 사람이 짜증 나서 표정이 그렇게 그런 표정을 나오는 거예요. I don't know.
짜증나는 표정.
짜증나는 표정.
Okay.
쌍년 얼굴. I'm gonna give this to Eric.
Okay.
I'm not trying not to be biased here because he's my
Yeah.
brother. It's actually called in Korean. If you guys want to write this down, 똥 씹는 표정.
Okay.
똥 씹는
I think
표정.
I've heard
Like-
that. I heard that.
Like where
right.
something's really bad. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So Eric got the win on that one.
Okay.
Now we're gonna go. Okay, so humble brag is another one that's kind of hard to define,
Okay.
but the culture is different. So everyone's already humble, supposedly in Korea.
Humble brag.
So what would you say? Like, what would a Korean person say if you're humble bragging?
자랑하고 있나?
Okay,
I'd say 헛세.
헛세. Okay. So normally what a Korean person will say, like a humble bragging Korean, be like, 진짜 짜증나. 돈이 너무 많아서 그 은행 여기가 가야 되고 저기
Yeah.
가야 되고. So you're basically humble bragging about how
Yeah.
much money you have. And you would say 자랑하고 있다. Eric would say 헛세. So they're both very, very similar.
Okay.
The only thing is 헛세 is more out in the open.
Right.
Like that's when you're just like, 우리 아빠가 뭐 주유소 두 개 갖고 있고 집은 강남이고.
Okay,
That's
just
more 헛세.
bragging.
And maybe a humble brag would be, 자기 자랑하는 거 아니야? Like that's more. I'm giving the point to Bobby.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you going down? You going down, Bobby?
I never-
you going down?
Right now we're 1-1. Okay. So here's a funny thing. In Korea we have sarang and we have 정.
Yeah.
So there's two different, very different concepts. And my ex-girlfriend kind of like explained this to me in her way. But what would you guys say? How would you define a crush?
A crush?
What would a Korean say if they had a crush on somebody? Or say you suspect your buddy has a crush on somebody that goes to school with you. What would you say to him, like to maybe like tease him? Oh, you got a crush on her or something like that, you know? What would a Korean do?
Man, I only know how to say, do you like her? But a crush, that's very specific. 너 얘 원해? I don't know.
Okay, 1A. Do you want her? Eric, what would you say?
I feel like if you like crushing on someone, like the person would be like, 그 사람 왜 관심 그렇게 많아? 왜 관심 있냐? Like that. I feel like it'd be like
관심 있는 거 아니냐?
Yeah.
So in Korea,
think it's
there's
probably a
like
word
if you
for
see
it.
somebody and like you like him at first sight, it's like 반하다, 반했어.
Oh, yes.
Or
I should have known
if you're
this.
really into something, you could say, 왜 그 여자한테 꽂힌 거 아니야? Like,
yeah, 반했.
or they would just say 관심 있다, or 좋아하는 거 아니야? 야,
Damn, I
쟤
should've
좋아하는 거 아니야? So
Yeah,
I told
Eric's
you.
got
Yeah,
Eric's
yeah.
got 2 points to 1.
You're going down, Bobby.
This is the crazy thing. Yesterday, an album came out of mine. It's a soundtrack.
The soundtrack came out, right?
And I sang a Korean song on it. And it's called 너에게 반했어.
I know that song.
Right? It's,
They used to play that at my games. Is that like a
Yeah.
remake?
yeah,
Like a cover?
yeah.
No,
It's a
nigga,
cover.
반했어.
Yeah.
Na, 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 na.
Dude, so the translation of that is you're crushing on me. Or
Right.
you're a crush on me.
Right.
Damn, I should have known that shit.
These are all kind of like 애매해. So let's go back to 눈치. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want both of your best. Now I got your definition on the podcast.
Okay, yeah,
But I have a bone to pick with that definition. Okay.
Okay.
But
I got a
agree-
bone to pick.
But here again, we're getting as close as we can to the definition.
Yeah,
like
this is
I don't
important.
think your definition's wrong. I think it's in the room, but it's not on the
Okay.
whole. So
That's the hardest thing with like translation is especially
Right.
especially like in a language where there's so much vocabulary like Korean.
nuance.
Like in English, like yeah, I mean one language, it's just difficult to translate stuff directly.
What would you say is 눈치, Eric?
Nunchi? Man, it's kind of like a hard one. It's like common sense, but it's like common sense like plus. It's like all those other things. Like, how did you know not to do that?
So we got to get as close as. But common sense is you're definitely in the room, but and
I think
they use nunchi for common sense a lot.
I think in English, it's
Exact.
it's probably the most. If you're gonna put it in like a very concise way, common sense is probably the best way to explain it.
Okay, common sense.
I would say.
Can we get closer, Bobby? Can we get closer to the pin?
Like a sixth sense?
Sixth sense. So
God
sixth
damn it.
sense is not necessarily common sense. Sixth sense is like spider sense. That's like not common.
No, I was gonna say common sense.
Like
but
sixth sense is like kind of a
go there.
supernatural awareness that like dogs can hear like sounds in a different spectrum. Are you gonna stick with sixth sense?
No. I'll go with like more like nerve.
Nerve.
Like,
No, what do you Oh no, I got it. What is it like when you should know something, where you're like, how the fuck do you say that? It's like, when you like are doing something embarrassing that you shouldn't have done. How do you say that? Like you're like when the person like has.
Are you born in a barn like type stuff? Like
kind of a thing where like
you're hawking loogies and farting in the elevator. Like,
oh man, fuck.
do you not understand where we are?
There's an English word for that. I don't know. I forget. But yeah, I think.
So Bobby, let's go back.
I get it though. Like I've been here long enough that my English vocabulary is like escaping me.
It's tough to nail down nunchi though. It is.
Nunchi's different.
I took a whole thing to.
Nunchi's a hard
I
one.
will give it to Eric because I believe sixth sense is kind of going. You're farther out of the ballpark. I think. So common sense is normally people will use nunchi for common sense, right? If you do something stupid, but there's other.
But they also use it for sixth sense too, because it's like you should know that. But then not everyone has it, right?
But you know, like.
But like seeing ghosts, you shouldn't know that. Like sixth sense is like a special.
I think I
spidey
said
sense.
that because we ask because our kid, we can tell that 눈치 보고 있어. Like he's trying to read the room.
Mm-hmm. So here's my definition that is going to put it right on the head because there's very normal settings for nunchi, but it doesn't work for all usages of the word.
So let's hear it.
So you said it's social awareness in a context or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, which is where we use it mostly. But that's actually in Korean. There's another word for that. We say 분위기 파악, or we say 상황 파악, like understanding the situation. Nunchi is very interpersonal. So nunchi, like for instance, 지금 사장님 지금 나한테 눈치 주고 있어.
Okay.
So he's like kind of like looking at me like saying, get to work, get to
Attention.
work, like, right?
Okay.
So common sense doesn't work for that kind of thing. And then 눈치 보인다. It's like when you walk into a room and you're late and everyone's kind of like giving you that look like, why are
But that's kind of a tough thing because then like you could be like, oh, you sat down in the 감독's chair. God, 눈치 없다. Like they'd be like, 너는 왜 이렇게 눈치 없어?
right?
Or-
So
or like-
눈치
or like-
없다, that's like a metaphorical,
Spidey
like
sense.
when you sit down in the head coach's chair.
Yeah. Like I've done.
It's a metaphorical thing where like people are probably like
damn,
looking
yeah,
at you,
yeah,
but you don't see it.
Right. But then when they say it to you, it's like you.
It is right, and so that's why people use it a lot for the. And this is just me nerding out, like whatever, do whatever you want with the definition. But like 상황 파악 is actually the correct thing, but people say 눈치 없다 for the metaphorical 눈치 that should be directed at you, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because they're like, damn, how'd you not know that? You don't got any common sense,
Right?
Like, you should know that. But then when you're like seeing like when the sajang name is like looking at you, and you're like, he's like, yo, do you see me? What the fuck are you doing? Get back to work. And like you're giving that like that laser beam where it's like.
So
Yeah.
last part of the quiz.
What's who won?
What's the definition?
Yeah, what's the definition? Man?
Oh, I'm saying it is that social awareness, but it has to be interpersonal. Like if you take the human aspect out of
awareness.
it, because I'm looking at your nunchi and looking at your expression to get information. Basically, reading people's gestures, body language, and face is
like-
nunchi.
Okay. It's
So
not
it's
so
very
on the
specific.
nose, but the social awareness, but not so.
Yeah, like social awareness is true, but you're basically reading body language, reading
okay.
people.
It's a hard thing because it's like
Spidey sense.
Nunchi's like a very because you can throw it at like so many different things. It's one of
Yeah.
those things that means everything and not that one
눈치
thing.
없어.
Right.
Right.
But we use it. We use a lot of things in metaphorical ways, but the literal, because it's nunchi, is actually reading the gestures in the face. But we use
Oh yeah, I just realized. Does it have anything to do with the eyes?
Yeah.
You have to.
yeah, it's giving your glance.
using
Nunchi
that
is literally
sense,
like a
like shooting a glance.
Yeah. 지금 눈치 주고 있어. He's giving me a dirty look or something like that.
Like a
Yeah.
like a glare.
Okay.
Okay.
So wait, more importantly, did I win?
No, we're at the tiebreaker round.
Wait, so he won? Bobby won?
Well, Eric, you're up 2-1, right? Am I correct?
Should be 3-1.
Oh,
No,
you're
I
up.
think-
You're
I
up 3-1.
think you got that one.
You're up 3-1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, dog.
Okay.
I got
Okay.
that one for
So I
sure.
got 2 more, and this is where Bobby can come up, and then we have a tiebreaker.
so that if I win game over.
Okay. First of all, gold digger. What would a Korean call gold digger?
Oh, 된장녀? 된장녀?
Gold digger. Gold digger. Oh man, I know this too.
I don't think you're gonna get it, but
I think I
it's
messed
an
up.
older
I
word.
think I messed up. Yeah.
It's the original version. 된장녀 is something that came later. So there's 2 other possible answers.
Fuck. I can't think of the word. I know
So
it is.
the old people would say gopem, like a flower snake, and the original 된장녀 is
Damn it.
a nicer way. Instead of saying like fuck, you say fudge. The original is jenjangnya. Jenjang
yeah,
is
I
like
did hear that,
damn bitch or whatever. So Bobby gets that 3-2. Now,
I remember Kopem. I remember that one.
okay. Now there's a word for stingy. What's the
Oh,
Korean
man.
word for stingy?
Ja.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Literally cheap. Now there's a couple other options, but there's also like a very Korean's very specific. There's like mekomhada, hada. There's
I think there's I know a couple other words for it, but I think that's the one that I hear the most.
yeah. So ja is just the very generic like this dude's cheap.
Salty ass motherfucker.
Yes.
Or 졸라 싸. Really cheap.
But that's cheap. That's like cheap as far as price, the price of an
Yeah.
object. I'm giving that to Eric. So Eric,
Okay. Shit.
Eric took it down.
Game.
Congratulations.
okay.
Game.
We'll have to have a rematch at some point. But that was
Wait, hold on. For
our event.
shits and giggles, what was the tiebreaker?
So the tiebreaker had to do with nunchi. So this is kind of one of the uses of nunchi that a lot of people don't like understand if you're coming from America. It's nunchi cheda, nunchi cheso.
I've never
I don't
heard
know that
that.
one either.
So it's like maybe me and Bobby are conspiring on a plan to like
What y'all talking about?
yeah, that's it. That's it. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
Eric kind of like gets kind of an inkling that our plan's going on, 진짜
Oh, like your ears?
눈치챈 것 같아. 눈치챈 것 같아.
your ears are
He
burning?
discovered our like 귀가 간지럽다. Like Eric 눈치챈 것 같은데 지금 나를 따라다니고 있어.
Okay.
Like Eric like he's kind of like these guys are plotting on me.
What is that in English? Like if you're trying to
Uncover a plot or to
Conspire. Talking about someone.
I don't know. Like,
I love that
Ears are
Koreans have these phrases that are so
thwarted or
perfect.
Yeah.
My favorite Korean phrase is 이불 kick.
이불 kick.
이불 kick. Blanket kick.
What's that? 탐명.
It's like when you're in bed and you kick the blanket for something you did in the past that you
이불
regret.
차기? What? How do you
That
say
you
it in
regret.
Korean? 이불 차기?
이불 kick. They call it 이불 kick.
이불 kick?
Yeah. Like
I've
kicking
never
the
heard
blanket.
that. I've never heard that.
You know when you're like you're just like sometimes you're just like zoning out and, you're like- and you think about something you regret.
Embarrassing or
Yeah, something embarrassing you did like as a kid or even the week before, and you're like, damn, why did I do that? And you like,
Would it work for like
kick the air.
a comeback that was like 2 days late? Like, I should have said.
yeah,
I should have told him, no, you're dumb.
exactly. That's like evil kick.
You know what is
moment.
like great about the Korean language? The great thing is that like they've deep dove on every part of human emotion, your face, like every single detail that like is a reaction to this specific thing, whether it's love, excitement, happiness, whatever it may be. They've looked at every stage and then put a word on it.
Yeah.
So it's like
true.
like in English, you're like, oh, I love you. Done. It means everything. And they can mean it's the same as I love my mom, I love my brother, I love the cup, I love this food, But then in Korea, they're like, oh, well, what kind of love are you talking about? What stage of love are you at? Are you in the first 100 days? Oh, okay, then it's this kind of love.
Oh, right.
It's like everything is very like specific. It's very,
biblical love,
you know?
filial love, or
agape love, all this kind of stuff. Right? Like they have all this stuff. Like, but it's pretty cool because like if you look at it, like if you're just talking about in English, this conversation would be very short.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. There's so much nuance in Korean, like 인상표. When I came in, I was like in a bad mood one day for practice, and all the older people, the gondes, were like, 야, 인상 안 펴? 인상 쓰고 있어. And I didn't know that was a thing. Like I didn't say anything bad. I didn't do anything bad, but I was just kind of like not happy that day. And I didn't know that you were supposed to be happy all the time. You know, I didn't know I was committing any felonies.
On the same thing, I remember we came in one day and like I had like a stinky face on, and they were like, "Yeah, 표정 관리 안 해?" And I was like, "What?"
표정 관리.
I was like, I'd never heard of that before. Like where they were like, "Yo, fix your face." I was like, "Fix your fucking face." Like, what you mean, fix your face?
Both of those sound like 정신 차려.
정신 차려.
They say that after.
But 정신 차려 would be 정신 차려. They would say that if like you were doing a play and you mess up the play because you weren't thinking, you forgot the play or something like that. They'd be like 정신 차려.
Okay.
But like 표정 관리 is like just you're doing everything right, but you just are pissed that you have to be at practice.
Okay.
Like it's like because you know in America, like if you're pissed, like they're like, all right, you know, like I see that you're pissed. I'll either acknowledge it or not. But in Korea, they're like everyone has to have the same face, and your face right now is bothering me. It's like I never heard of that before. Like we'd practice, and like the coach would be like, "Yo, you just gonna smile the whole time? Stop smiling." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, that's interesting too. 맞을래?
Yeah, like they'd be like, "Yeah."
Can we do a transition now?
Let's go.
I want to talk to you about Korean Cowboys or K-Town Cowboys.
K-Town Cowboys.
Because I had and that's something that I watched.
Yeah.
And I thought it was super entertaining. How did that come around?
Oh,
How did you get involved in that? What's its legacy? Because why didn't you guys do more of it? It was awesome.
You should get Danny on the show.
And why is it so undercover? Because like it's like
Danny's ducking us.
Because like it wasn't like I actually thought about that movie quite a bit. This like was it a couple years ago when Crazy Rich Asians came out. Because everyone was like, oh, it's like one of the first times that it's been an all Asian cast since like Joy Luck Club and Blah. And like I'm like, nah, there was like another movie, a Korean movie, and then
I don't know. It's because that Crazy Rich Asians, they had a lot more money involved.
They went over the top with the yachts and stuff.
It's off of a best-selling book, and so I don't know. We were just like a bunch of boneheads in K-Town that actually hung out there. We were just hanging out. Danny, we were all friends, the whole cast. We did the web series first, then we did the movie.
Did you guys all meet in LA? And how did that come?
We did. I mean, we were all entertainers. I guess like Danny was a musician, a comedian. I was a singer-songwriter. The other guys were actors. And then,
so you guys just all mingle? Because like it's not like I know soccer players because I'm an athlete, or I don't know any baseball
in
players.
LA, all the Asian entertainers know each other.
No matter what you do, comedians hang out with singers and actors. At least
just one degree of separation if you don't know each other.
You don't know Asian porn stars?
There are.
With the hats and the glasses, and the mosaic.
Apparently, I know of two of them. I know of two of them.
But so like, the community is like real tight like that.
Yeah. So
cool.
We just like literally we were all not working during the day or night. Like we were all like jobless. Danny was working at a cafe in K-Town every day, just writing, and so I would end up at that cafe too, and then a couple of other actors would be at the same cafe. Danny was writing some script, and he'd be like, oh, I think I'll write Bobby into this. I'll write Lanny into this. I'll write Pedro into this. Like we were literally all working on our own shit at this Korean cafe, and then it turned into.
So who did you pitch it to, or did you guys just do it organically, pool resources and do it?
I mean, we were still like in our 20s, so it was very. Oh, the web series actually. Maybe I was the oldest of the bunch, so maybe they were in their 20s. But the director, DPD. Him and Danny, one day, they were like, I think we got something. So they actually went to Vegas one night, rented a hotel, and didn't come back till they finished the first series. And I don't know. I don't know why they had to go to Vegas.
Yeah,
it was like close enough. It's only like 3-4 hour drive. So, and then they came back. They said, hey, we have this.
Got it.
And you guys are all going to be in it. We, like everyone, like all the DP, all the lighting, everyone, the whole crew were our friends. And so awesome. No one got paid. We all did it for, and then we were, there's a Cafe Blue that we went, that's kind of famous in K-Town. But it's like this bar in the middle of K-Town that everyone goes to. The owner there gave us like $5,000 of like
huge.
chamisul money. You know, so we had like a mini sponsor. So we made this whole thing for like, I think it was a 5 or 10 grand.
What?
But basically everyone working for free.
Yeah. And if you watch that web series, there's like a ton of like people in it.
Yeah.
Like we have hundreds of people like
and did
extras.
Did it
like,
make money? Like, because YouTube wasn't big back then, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you guys, I saw it on the internet.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it wasn't on YouTube, I don't think.
I mean, we always say that it was the first web series on YouTube.
Yeah, because back then, like people were like, "Oh, it's a series." Like, so it's what it's on like on TV. Like, I don't think people were really like looking to the internet to watch stuff like that. It was kind of a revolutionary idea.
It was like these 8 to 10 minute episodes. I remember we kept it short because at the time, YouTube, if you went over, you couldn't go over 10 minutes or something like that. So we kept them really short. It was like 8 or 9 episodes. Everyone, like, we asked everyone to be in it. So there's a lot of people in there. If you watch it now, damn, there's like Justin Chan is in it. Justin is like, since has gone to Sundance like every year. Like this guy's like a super director. Like Arden Cho was in it. A bunch of people like were in the series that are doing really well now in acting and in other fields. So we were just friends, you know. I wasn't even an actor. Danny was like, "Hey, you got to be in this. I wrote the character based on you." And I was like, "No, man, I'm not an actor. Just we have so many actor friends. Just get them." And no one would do it for free. So I ended up just having to play myself, I guess.
Which is I think it's like a real iconic thing because it's like it captures. I think it pretty accurately. K-Town at that time, you know, that time, the 2000s, you know, like,
Also, it's like, I mean, like from the Korean community, it's not like you can look at entertainment and be like, there's a role model that I have. We were all kind of like looking at Bruce Lee, you know. But he wasn't
not Korean. So like, really is very niche with the kung fu.
I mean, we had the same thing in basketball. We were looking like there wasn't a Korean guy in the NBA. So we looked at Michael Jordan or something, you know, or like one of these guys. But like for singers, like entertainers, comedians, actors, it's like, who are you gonna look to? Like, you know?
Yeah.
But then for you guys made this, and now for like the next generation, they can look and see like people on TV that are doing what they want to do.
Well, I think it did so well because it, like, for people that were Korean American to see this, they all experienced some part of what we were we were showing. Like, if you visit LA, you definitely went clubbing. There was booking involved.
Yes.
And nobody knew what was. Well, the first time I saw booking, I was like, what is this?
It's awesome.
This is crazy. Which came from the motherland, but like, we didn't know that. We just were like these Korean American kids. We go to a club with all other Korean Americans, and then you have, you know, girls or whatever, like waiters bringing girls to your table, you know, and playing matchmaker. Like it was like amazing when you're in your 20s and you're just like really unsure of yourself and you're afraid to talk to anyone. Like for me, it was like, oh, well, at least I get like a minute to
try to get a phone number.
Yeah, to state my case. You know, like it never worked out.
I have my speech prepared. Let me get
this is the reason you should stay in that seat.
So we wanted to tell that story because it literally was nowhere. There was no podcast to talk about these stories. There's nothing back then.
Plus, like in the rest of culture, that doesn't even exist. So like these little things about being Korean, like. I mean, I guess they had that stuff in Seattle, but like it's not like we went to booking clubs in Seattle,
right?
You know, we didn't know.
I first did booking in Korea, and I was like, "This is weird." But back to K-Town Cowboys, I think what, even if you have never been to LA K-Town, if you're a kyopo from somewhere else, I think what was cool too is your cast of characters, because you had every version of the kyopo. You had like the super like roided, you know, the meathead kyopo, which is not a like in Korea, you don't really see that guy that often, right? Yeah. You had the very like sensitive, like real artsy guy.
You see the roided guy out in the summertime at the Hangang 수영장.
But you know what, his character, in Korea, that guy can't be as like, let's go get it. He can't be like that in Korea, right?
Yeah.
And
that's true.
you know, you got the chubby guy that likes to drink and crack jokes and
Yeah.
stuff. Like you had like all the different cast of characters that even if you grew up in Seattle, you probably had a crew that had a few of those characters.
Yeah.
You could
It's a good
totally
balance.
identify. You could totally
Yeah.
identify because like you look up there and like, oh, there's like my buddies, my friend, my cousin, like my mom, my dad, like you know, like you're hanging out
The
places.
pretty boy, the real
Yeah.
one stressed about his future type guy, and
I think we got the balance right. I
Yeah.
think Danny and
Yeah.
DPD definitely got the balance right of characters, and we wanted it to touch, like we wanted everyone to watch it and be like, oh, that's me,
yeah,
you know. And
I think you guys did that.
I think the next thing what I regret we didn't get to do was at one point someone had the idea of making a K-Town Cowgirls.
I heard it was
Spin-off?
I
I think
heard
that-
about that. It was like supposed to be like Jersey Shore type, like kind of deal, but yeah, like the
Oh no,
opposite.
they did another show called K-Town.
Oh, was that what it
It
was?
was a reality show that
okay.
you know was
that's the one that-
executive producer was
that's what it was-
Tyrese of
I
all
think Joe
people.
was in that one.
Yeah, Joe.
How about
from
this?
Seattle.
How about this? And I'm just gonna pitch it to you. And if it's trash, tell me it's trash. What about
I like it. Yes.
like kind of like a K-Town Cowboys concept, but soul? Like
Yeah.
when people have you. This has probably occurred to you.
No, we actually talked about it. We were gonna do the sequel to the movie.
The rude awakening of
Yeah.
being in the motherland, right?
So we made a movie in 2015, straight up like pretty big budget for
Mm-hmm.
an indie film.
Who sponsored that?
That was, you know, we had an investor, Hyung, that actually that lives in Seoul, and we see quite often. And he actually wanted us to make a sequel as well. So Danny started working on the sequel. And in the end of K-Town, spoiler alert, my character moves to Korea. So, you know, I play an adoptee. So the plan was the sequel is going to happen in Korea, but this time, you know, Koreans are going to teach Kyopos what Korea is about.
What it is to be a real Korean? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was basically the premise. You know, while we're looking for my birth parents.
That's hilarious because like that's not a movie. That's just like every Kyopo's experience when they come to Korea.
And that's why it's so great for a
every
movie.
Korean artist, like,
Exactly.
So many
yeah.
people can relate to it.
So anyone out there, if there's an investor that, you know, has money.
Because like,
Tell-
whether you like it
We'll
or
do
not,
it.
Write me in
if you
too.
come to Korea,
You guys need to have Korean perspective.
Yeah.
like whether you like it or
Seriously,
not,
yeah.
if you come here, like the cool thing about Korea is like everyone around you is gonna like if you step out of line, they're gonna put you in check.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like-
That's another thing though. Like
It's kind of a cool thing.
A problem we ran into with writing the script also was, you know, we wanted to expose some of the underground culture here, and then we found out fast that was like a big no-no, or that we would just get
big secret?
someone would get us kicked out, like, you know, like the whole
Hostess.
room salon culture and all that.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of shed light on that.
What is that?
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, look it up. It's
Interesting.
so, but I mean, like, I think now we could actually.
Well, now that there's
probably
been all
make
those
us-
scandals with all the big stars and
exactly.
stuff, I think it would be a good time. And they're actually, it might be gone. So this is like
Yeah.
might be the last dying kicks of the moment because of all that and because the government is trying to shut down more and more.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first came to Korea, there was a red light district right in Yongsan. There was a red light district. They were all over Seoul, and now they're all gone.
They weren't hard to find.
I mean, maybe it's okay to write a script and make a movie about these things now that it's like on the way out. That's kind of what K-Town Cowboys, the web series, the whole booking culture was really big then, but it was actually kind of dying down.
Yeah.
And then what we did with the movie was there's this big Tomi culture
Right.
in LA, and that morphed into something completely, really.
What did it morph
weird.
into? I know the
don't
Tomi
know.
thing.
I don't know. Every time I go back, everyone's telling me it's just something completely different. It's not even Korean anymore. So it's like unrecognizable.
Tomi is a funny word. It's like little helper.
Yeah. So we exposed that culture in K-Town Cowboys, the movie, while it was kind of going out of style. So maybe it's time to do a sequel in Korea.
Because I think what
time.
I can relate to, and I haven't seen the movie. I just saw the web series. I could relate because me and Eric grew up in like a completely white neighborhood. Felt my mom would take us to Korean church, and we just didn't feel comfortable because we didn't know what was going on. We couldn't speak the language, and no one looked at us and said, "Oh, you're just a Korean like us." No one ever like. So we completely. But later on, we started playing basketball with the older Korean Hyungs.
Okay.
It was the same thing like from your web series where they had to introduce us. This is how we drink in Korea. These are the kind of bars we go to. And we're like, wow, this is so cool.
Two hands, yeah.
And instead of just having a beer and watching football, you're having like nice food. Like, you have like the keranjim. You got a poljang matcha till late, and everything closes way later.
We learned all that stuff later, and like because like normally like your dad or your uncles, you'll learn that like by like at the table.
Yeah,
we learned that like way later from like our youngs from basketball.
Okay.
And like
I didn't learn it till I got to K-Town, till I moved to LA.
Oh, you didn't do any of that in New York?
No, I didn't know anything about I didn't start drinking till I was of age, and so by the time that happened, I was out of New York. I went to like an all-white college, and there I was not exposed to.
Bobby's more like us than I thought. Like,
so you didn't drink a lot of Wheaton?
I did. I got wasted a few times. I remember. Probably had to repent for it. But man,
that was I think one of the other things Eric almost got kicked out.
Oh really?
Having a few brews.
Yeah, it was a strict because like I went with him abroad, so yeah.
Yeah, dude, I totally.
No, I think that's hilarious. I think that'd be cool because that's like a total, and I think a lot of Koreans that like. I remember just in high school, just being all white neighborhood, going to the high school, and then there's Asians at high school. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. We're all kind of like, and then I went through this whole Asian pride thing, right?
That's what I was kind of wondering about. Yeah.
And then you come to Korea and you're like, they don't look at you like,
you're
like, hey, Asian pride, Korean pride. They're like, oh, you're Korean? You think you're Korean?
Yeah.
Like, then you have to like go through their initiation process.
Right.
It's like getting initiated into a gang.
That's kind of what I was wondering about, like how it was growing up, if there was all those Asians around, because like, when we were growing up, like, and I think a lot of Asians that grow up in the States or outside of Asia might feel the same way. I know that like when I was young, like you look around and the only one that really looked like me was my brother or my uncles, right? I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm Korean. You go out into a white school and you're like, oh, I'm not white, but my dad's white. So we kind of were like, I kind of like feel you're like somewhere here, but like nothing really feels like home.
Yeah.
And then I remember like our next door neighbor was from Hawaii. And I remember one of the first feelings I felt were like, I was like, oh, damn, like a lot of people look like me was when we went to Hawaii. So like how you came and you're like, everyone looks like me.
All right.
We went to Hawaii and I was like, damn, there's a lot of people that look like me. I was like, shit, this looks like,
all of them Filipino.
Yeah.
But then like where you don't really know, you're insecure, you're young, you're trying to figure out how to talk to girls, how to talk to anybody, you're awkward, you're Asian, you're not white or black or whatever. You're just kind of like there.
Yeah.
And then everyone else has stereotypes about you, and maybe you're not good at math, like what the fuck? I wasn't good at math, but like there's like all this stuff that people think, and then where do you fit in? I think like the web series and like the movie kind of like addressed a lot of that stuff, what it's like to grow up as an insecure Asian in America.
So quick question for Bobby. Now that I know this new information that you kind of grew up a little bit like us. Now, for instance, when I come to Korea, just because I look different, I find that just somewhere in my brain, I have to act more Korean just to prove that I can walk the walk and talk the talk. Like, I'll be more Korean. Like, Koreans won't be eating the 청국장. I'll be like, oh, 청국장 진짜 맛있다. Where it's like, it's good, but sometimes I go overboard just to let them know that like, oh shit, he's one of us. Did you ever like go into an all-white college? Because I have friends, like we have friends in Seattle that are more bro-y.
Right.
And I think it's probably from being the only full Asian at their all-white school.
Yeah.
Did you ever go through like a full like try to be like extra white to talk the talk and walk the walk?
I mean, I had that kind of chip on my shoulder going into in college. Like it's basically all white college, and I remember making fun of Asians just to make it okay, or just to fit in.
Yeah.
And they would laugh their asses off when I would say something, I don't know, probably inappropriate about Asians.
Right.
And then
like making fun of fobs or something.
Yeah, and I feel like I regret it now. But yeah, I did things like that just to fit in.
Yeah, I've definitely
remember, like-
America bashed when I've been in Korea. Yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
they're so stupid over there,
Oh,
and
no.
you know,
Oh, no.
I've definitely done that to fit in, to like be
Yeah.
cool, and now I'm just trying. It's always trying to find that equilibrium. I think I'm much more comfortable now, where it's like I don't care if you allow me into your club or want to hang out with me.
I remember like when
you know?
I went to school, like when I went to school, like the whole team was basically black, right? So you're playing
Oh
like
my God,
basically an
here we
African American
go.
sport, right? And I go down there, and I remember I went to college, right? And I was starting to like kind of realize maybe how good I could be at basketball, but I was still insecure, growing up in like an all white school and whatever, going playing a black sport, and then like now I'm in school. I get down there, I go to school, I got a white polo on, pressed khakis, and my nice shoes. I go down there.
And you look nice.
I'll see you later, brother. Mom, dad, thank you for dropping me off. Everything's nice, right? And I came back, and like when I went back, I'm like immersed in this culture. I'm wearing like baggy jeans, sagging down past my ass, huge baggy stuff. I shaved my head because I was trying to fit in. I came back, and like my mom and dad, my brother talked to me. I'm like,
No, Eric,
Like,
Eric,
I went-
Sandra, and Eric went for college. Derek came back.
Oh, Derek.
I was hardcore.
Derek
Like,
Jackson came back.
I was like, yeah. Like I was like just.
Derek was black when he came back.
I came
he
back
had a shaved
black.
head. He looked
Man,
light skinned.
When
Like,
I
I
came,
went all the way in.
when I came to Korea too, I kind of had that kind of. I still do it now actually. Even when I get into cabs, I try to say where I have to go perfectly, and then I try to shut my mouth. Like I won't pick up the phone because I don't want them to know that I'm a foreigner. Just so like I feel like accepted. I do that every now and then, like stupid things like that, just to kind of feel like I'm
I do that too.
Korean.
Like I'll jump in a cab and I'll say something because I know for a fact that this is perfect, right?
한남동이요.
Yeah.
And then I'll sit down and then I'll be sitting in the back and I'm like, I want to say something else. And I'll say something else. I'm like, fuck, now he knows.
Yeah.
I'm like, he knows I'm not.
I'm just
Korean.
wishing that they don't ask any questions like that I won't be able to answer. Or like even with the cuisine, like when I first got here, I tried hongo for the first time.
I do love hongo.
At
But it's
first,
hard for most
but
people.
the first time it was like this, like tastes like bleach.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
you're
It
eating
smells
like
worse.
I like it now, but when I
Your
first
wife's
tried
from
it, I was
Gwangju.
like,
That's like hotbed for hongo.
I was just kind of like faking it, like, oh, this is great.
Right.
Koreans love it, so I should probably love it too.
But I know too, like, I like this is like the way I personally feel about kyopos here. I think that like you guys got it like the hardest because if you grow up in America and like a lot of our kyopo friends like grew up not speaking Korean, then they come to Korea and they be like, damn, man, like it was so hard. They were so mean to me because they expect me to be like this.
Yeah.
And then when they realize that I don't speak Korean, it's not my fault. My parents didn't speak to me, or I didn't grow up, or I was adopted, or whatever it may be. Like, they get like 0 passes. Like there's like they like are really like brutal. Whereas like for us, because we don't look Korean, anything that we can say, if we say annyeonghaseyo, they're like, oh my god,
You
like,
kinda like-
yes, like they're so happy, right? And I think for you guys, it's really difficult because it's really hard because the expectations for you are like you have to be perfect, and if you're not,
yeah, I get it. I get
You know?
that, but I'm also I rather live with that than go home and like move back to New York and have those feel like every corner was like a bad memory. you know?
Really?
So I'm happy to have escaped that and live here and feel safe and despite all that kind of like pressure that.
But what do
is
you miss the most
unwanted.
about New York? Because I mean, you know, good and bad.
Like just being able to not go like more than 2 blocks to get a pizza.
Oh yeah, a
Or
good
like
pizza, right?
Yeah, or like a decent bagel. But then besides, I can live without that now. Like
It'll be here
I
in
can-
Korea. If you wait
yeah.
long enough, Koreans
Yeah.
will figure out how to make bagels.
I mean, I've lived here long enough that I actually like the kogoma pizzas and stuff like that. I'm okay with that.
Pizza school.
Yeah, pizza school. I love it. Yeah,
so like what is it? Ochanan?
it's
like super
less
cheap
than
and-
$5
it's like
for
super
your own
cheap.
pie.
And you actually do get a decent pizza.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
first came out here and I saw the shrimp and ketchup and like corn
Mayonnaise.
and like other stuff, I was like, what the fuck?
Funky, right?
I'm like, I'll take 2.
I love it now.
But you know, now at Costco, even the microwave pizzas aren't bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of good stuff.
And you usually get a free Coke with it too. So
Yeah. We get
But,
that's like very New York too.
Yeah.
The Coke,
This
the
podcast
Coke
is
and-
brought to you by Pizza School.
Yeah, they always give you that extra can or the bottle of Coke.
Well, shit, we're fuck, it was awesome having you on.
Oh yeah, thanks,
Bobby.
This is
like
fun.
this is cool. Like kind of
flew.
uncovering you, like because since we started doing this podcast, we know you, but I feel like we're just getting to know you. Now.
Yeah,
We're just scratching the surface on.
It's hilarious. I feel like, because like there's so many things that like about how we grew up, and like certain things will kind of overlap, but like a lot of things about the way you grew up is very similar to how we grew up. It's really interesting.
I know more about you guys because I'm week after week I'm just listening to you guys talk on the podcast, and I can tell that we have a lot in common actually. And so I look forward to getting to know you guys better, or you guys getting to know me better as well. So thanks for having me on. This is actually pretty cool. Like I didn't know what to expect. I knew there were questions and stuff.
Well, we kind of, and also like I had an idea of how it was going to go, but it kind of went off because, just doing all the things that you do and all the, the different hats that you wear and all the things you're involved with. I didn't kind of really know which way it was going to
So also it's like there's so many things we go on. It's like, how do we like condense this into an hour?
We really need a 3-hour thing with Bobby, but
part 1.
But awesome. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That is, I don't even know which episode we're on, but that is today's episode of PhaseTwo podcast. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next time.